Am I still alive? Yes, I'm still alive. One more person just joined us. And yeah, I'd like to welcome you all to this particular Lunch and Learn session. My name is Guy Blood, and I'm the current president of the Edmonton Interfaith Center and enjoying that very much. The Edmonton Interfaith Center, of course, is involved in education and action and helping people of various faith traditions to understand each other and work together in harmony and inclusion. I'd like to welcome you all, and this session is featuring Helen Arnott, and her topic is sacred sites of northern India. So that'll be exciting for us to watch. And we're going to be recording, so we are in fact already. And if you don't want your face or name on the recording, then you can just select stop video and change your name to something else if you want. You have the option in somewhere near the bottom to change your name. I'd like to mention that we're on Treaty 6 land. Well, not actually. We're in the air above Treaty 6 land. Each of us is maybe having a seat on Treaty 6 land. And Treaty 6 land came about because of a decision by the Pope and the kings of Europe to say it was okay to discover new lands and take power and control over the land and any inhabitants. And it was a disaster in just about every place. And the people that lived here have suffered tremendously from that. And we're the beneficiaries of that action. And I, for one, certainly am grateful for being able to live on this land and survive and do well. But the Indigenous people, of course, suffered, and they continue to suffer. I would like to ask Netta now to function as the moderator and introduce Helen and get us started. Helen, could you unmute yourself and
yeah, thank you, Guy. I don't know about moderating, but I'm certainly happy to introduce Helen, who has been a member of the Interfaith Center for years. And in many conversations we've had, she's mentioned that she grew up in India, and I've always said, "Oh, that's so exciting! I have been to India. Of course, it's an overwhelming place, and I can't imagine a childhood there." There's my pardon.
Netta got called away. I suspect she'll be back very quickly.
Hi, everyone. While we're just waiting for Netta to come back, I'd just like to comment and thank you, Guy, for your land acknowledgement. I am very, very grateful for living in Canada. I grew up as a visible minority in India, as Netta has mentioned to you already. And this morning, or I guess it's noon now, I would like to just give you a glimpse of my India. I think that India is such a land of diversity that whatever I say is just me. I am ever so grateful for having been brought up in a different culture to what I live in now. And so here I am. I'm going to open the sharing screen here and start sharing for the presentations. So yeah, here from the beginning there, I'll try and there we are. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, it's quite clear.
Oh, good. I'll just get my own screen organized. Okay, so I really like this picture because it somehow helps me to go backward in time, through the mists of time, one might say, to some of the memories of my childhood. I've been back to India a couple of times as an adult. So the slides that you'll be seeing are from the adult period of my life. Going back to my childhood, my parents left for India in the middle of the Second World War. And in today's world, I can't imagine that. They sailed for India 3 days after their wedding in Vancouver. And they went to language school in northern India for a couple of years to learn to speak Hindi, during which time my dad must have been quite alarmed over the state of the world and asked permission from the United Church to apply to enter the British Indian Army as a chaplain. And they agreed, the authorities here in Canada agreed, and he found himself in Burma during the Japanese invasion of Burma, and it was a very difficult time. My mother was left behind in India, where she gave birth to me in a big city in Madhya Pradesh called Indore. That's where I was born, in north central India. So that's a little bit of the origins of my my beginning, one might say. So what I hope to do today is encourage some discussion amongst us after you see the slides. I'll just make some brief comments as we go through. We'll visit the cities that you see listed on the right-hand side here. Rishikesh, Varanasi, Sanchi, Dharamshala, Ranakpur, Haridwar, Amritsar. And I'm not going to comment on the some of the aspects of Judaism, Islam, Christianity, or animism. I'm just going to focus on Hinduism, the sites that I visited in Hinduism, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, up in Dharamshala, and Jainism and Sikhism. Now, you may know that the population of India is about almost 1.4 billion people now. And of those 1.38 or 1.4 billion people, about 80% of the people are Hindus. 14 or 15% are Muslim, and only about a little over 2% are Christian, and 1.7, almost 2% are Sikhs. So most of the people are Hindu. During my time in India as a child, we had guests in our home from all these religions and no particular religions. So I've learned to appreciate people of all colors and all faiths during my experiences. So let's see now. Moving right along, starting up in Rishikesh and Varanasi. Rishikesh is just down from the mountains up in this area in Uttar Pradesh, and we go into Varanasi, Benares, another huge big city, used to be called Benares, and it's now called Varanasi, where you may have seen pictures of the burning ghats. This is the state where I was born, right in the middle, Madhya Pradesh. Indore is right about where the M is, I guess. And then this is where we'll visit Sanchi, one of the sites of Buddhism. And we'll go back up into the mountains up here, the Himalayan mountains, Dharamshala, and we'll end up somewhere over in Rajasthan here. And we'll finish off in somewhere around Amritsar in Punjab. So we're up here. So we're up here right now, and I'm going to show you just, this is a foothill in the Himalayan mountains on the way up to the school that I attended as a child. Every day when my mother took us out of boarding school, we would see glimpses of the snow-covered mountains similar to our Rocky Mountains here. This one happens to be a mountain called Nanda Devi. This is just outside the gates of my school, and over here through the trees you can see parts of the village. We walked everywhere. The pavement that you see was much narrower and gravelly when I was a kid growing up, and we had coolies carrying us on their backs in little baskets, kundis. So this is all brand new, and even to see a car up here, you know, never mind several cars, is just amazing to me. So just some ideas about Hinduism to begin with. I think some of you here right now may already have been to India, so I really appreciate your comments as well when we go into the discussion period after you see the slides. My understanding is that yoga is very pervasive in India. The kind of yoga that I see and hear happening here in the West is more of a kind of an exercise, and sometimes with tongue in cheek, I call it fake yoga. I had a small, short experience of what I might call real yoga in Rishikesh at the foothills of the mountains, where yoga is samadhi, and samadhi is a very deep, my understanding is it's a very deep kind of spiritual meditation where I think my grandchildren might say that if you are in samadhi, you might be kind of zoned out. Zoning in and zoning out seems to be a phrase that's used with the young people quite a bit these days. So I myself don't do yoga. I don't do meditation. I'm too busy, too active in my life. My body needs to move around, I think. But yoga is pervasive through all kinds of Hinduism. We find ourselves jumping around from place to place, actually, and it's just maybe in some way a kind of a metaphysical comment on life in India, where everything is jumbled up. It's quite confusing to the Western eye, I think. So we're down from the mountains now, and we're traveling around in Madhya Pradesh, where my parents visited the Adivasi people, the Aboriginal, the indigenous people of India, and we would see sites like these next two slides frequently. The langur is a type of monkey, in my understanding, and you may have heard of Hanuman, the symbol of a Hindu, an aspect of Hinduism, which Westerners might call a god. In my understanding, there is only one God in Hinduism, and these other depictions are symbols of God. So Hanuman is patterned after one of these langurs and creatures like monkeys. These three, this is just amazing. I was traveling in a tourist jeep when my, oh, excuse me for a minute. Yeah. Then I just looked up from speaking with one of my traveling companions, and this is the scene that I saw. They were just these hidden deer. These deer were just lined up perfectly for, I think it's a prize-winning photo. So, oh yes, there's my tourist companions. They're all Americans. This young girl standing straight upright was over 6 feet tall, and she attracted a lot of attention as a very visible minority in India. She is a unilingual American. We see many farmers in Madhya Pradesh. It's an agricultural community, and this fellow was taking his cattle from one field to another, and this lady was helping him, and she's very friendly, you can see, and colorful. And I caught a glimpse of her taking her water buffalo off to graze in another area. I grew up drinking water buffalo milk. It's a bit different from cow's milk. Here we are in Varanasi, which was Benares, where Orthodox Hindus aspire to going and having their bodies cremated and launched into the burning ghats of the Mother Ganga, the Ganges River. When we went out in one of these tourist boats, I asked our tour guide something about how can the water of the Ganges River be pure? And the response was that the water is religiously pure but scientifically putrid. And I've never forgotten that. It's kind of a dichotomy, I guess, between religion and science in a sense. This is a Hindu priest offering a shad, a prayer, a grace for living a good life. I also participated in this ceremony, as did my American companions. It's a very moving ceremony. I think that for me, the aspect of a candle or fire is one of the commonalities amongst all the religions, what little I know about all of them. And certainly that is true with this Arti ceremony, which involves fire as well. The temples in Khajuraho are fantastic. They're very, very attractive tourist sites. People are always coming and going. Khajuraho, I remember my dad wanting to go there with a bunch of men friends. And in those days, women and children weren't allowed to go. And I think because of all the erotic carvings that we saw on the temple, the pillars. Diversity in India is amazing. We actually stayed in this hotel in Khajuraho, and I don't think I've ever been in a hotel this fancy and this clean in Canada. There you have it. You'll also, I'm going to be showing you some scenes that really aren't very nice at all. So it just gives you an idea of the tremendous diversity in India and what does it mean to us philosophically and spiritually. The mantra in Buddhism that is very used frequently amongst Buddhists is this one, Om Mani Padme Hum. And it refers to a certain purity of mind, body, and speech. And those particular words mean something along the lines of praise, the jewel in the lotus. It's hard to interpret, to translate literally from one language to another. And so I think for me, what this mantra is talking about are these aspects of human living. At this point, I'd like to tell you a little story that I know coming from the Buddha when he was a young lad. Siddhartha was a teenager, and one of his friends came with a saris, a beautiful saris crane, which he had shot, and it had fallen onto the ground. I'm not sure if it was dead or not, but he brought the creature to Siddhartha, the young Buddha, and Siddhartha said, "Oh, he would keep it and nurse it back to health." And his cousin said, "No, it's mine. I got it." And they started to have a fight, as kids do, over which kid was going to take this bird. And so they took it. The two of them went and they took the creature to the king. And the king thought long and hard, and he said, "I am going to allow Siddhartha to have this bird because Siddhartha is promoting life. He wants to nurse it back to health." And so for me, what I've learned during the course of my life so far is that life is more, anything that promotes life and good health is a wonderful thing. That's just an aspect of Hinduism. Here is Sanchi, a Buddhist shrine back down in central India. It's a stupa. And again, some lovely carvings on the stupa. Some of which are erotic and some are not. We are going up to Dharamshala now, where the Dalai Lama lives. And we actually had the opportunity to meet him. The Norbalinka Institute is attended by people from all over the world. These are colorful flags that you are used to seeing when you're thinking about Buddhism. Prayer candles at Norbalinka. People come and offer prayers to their deity and light candles, just as we do in Christianity. Artisans at work. It's a busy, busy place. In Dharamshala, you will see, this is way up in the mountains, so people are dressed fairly warmly. And these grandmothers are going down towards the Dalai Lama's palace. Young Buddhist nun. I met a Buddhist priest when I was leaving Denmark one day. He was my traveling companion for the journey. And I asked him about Buddhism, and he belonged to a different type of Buddhism, not the same as the Dalai Lama. And I asked him about the Dalai Lama, what was his opinion, and his opinion was that how he explained it was that the Dalai Lama is one aspect of 4 different kinds of Buddhism, and he was no greater or lesser than any other type of Buddhist, so whatever that means. Young vendor. I actually, I think one of our United Churches here uses singing bowls. I forget the name of the lady who does it, who promotes the the sound of the singing bowls. But I bought this one here. Oops, not that one, this little one here. And it's, for me, it's kind of zoning into the sound of the universe if I'm in a certain kind of a mood. He was a very friendly young fellow and told me he was 12. I don't know, he might be a little bit older than that. A memorial to the Buddhists that have lost their lives. We're back down in Madhya Pradesh now, where I was born. And we see a lovely, beautiful Jain temple. Jainism is an offshoot of Hinduism. And here is Lord Mahavira, who is revered in Jainism. We have several Jains living here in Edmonton. It's a very, there's not so many people in the Jain faith right now, I don't think. We visited the Golden Temple in Amritsar, which has been the site of much anxiety, I think, in India. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Sikhism is also considered to be an offshoot of Hinduism, I believe. And here we have some musicians at the time that we visited Amritsar at the Golden Temple. The Nekchand garden figures in Amritsar are quite something. They're all made out of little bits and bobs of glass and china. And it started off many, many years ago. And gradually, the fellow that is the artist was able to enlarge his garden. And we visited this place and saw many figures like this. I'm just going to show you one there. Going into the big Gurudwara, the big temple. And here in Edmonton, we also have several Gurudwaras. They are Sikh temples. And we're invited, not allowed, we're invited to go and have meals with them here in Edmonton. Even if you have never been, it's a very good experience. I would encourage you to go sometime. And because of the culture that we're in here, the meals are usually at lunchtime here in Edmonton. I don't have many slides of Islam for obvious reasons. Images of God are not allowed in Islam. But certainly, there are a significant number of Muslim people who live in India, and these are the 5 pillars of Islam. We had people of all faiths around our dining table in India when we were allowed to join. I was about 8 when I was allowed to start having dinner with the grown-ups once in a while. The Taj Mahal is the wonderful edifice built by Shah Jahan in grieving for his beautiful wife, Mumtaz, who bore him 14 children and died when she was delivering the 14th. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. And unfortunately, when we were there, there was a lot of pollution in the atmosphere. But if you ever go to India, this is one of these sites that really are important to visit. Everybody visits the Taj, built as a monument to a beloved wife. These are palace ruins near one of the places that we lived in Madhya Pradesh, central India, which reminds me of the village Mandu. I don't think this is Mandu. It's another place near Orcha in central India, but it's very Muslim. I won't be showing you too many pictures of these, but the story of Rupmati and Baz Bahadur is a wonderful love story, which I somehow latched onto in my childhood, where Baz Bahadur, a handsome young Muslim prince, heard Rupmati singing across the way, and he had never met her, but he fell in love with her singing voice. And so he said to himself that I must have this woman for my wife. And somehow in my teenage years, I kind of got appealed to the romantic side of me, and I latched onto that story. So this edifice is an abandoned Mughal palace, where I imagine Rupmati and Baz Bahadur must have had their rendezvous. And Baz Bahadur, he gathered all his engineers of his kingdom and said, you have got to make this little river rise to my foot of my palace, because Rupmati won't marry me if I don't make the river Narbada rise. And so, okay, they were threatened with dire circumstances if they didn't make the Narbada River rise. And sure enough, they dug, and they found the underground well, and the river Narbada rose to the foothill of Rupmati's palace. And he proposed to her one more time, and she said, "Oh, all right, I guess I'll marry you." So then they lived happily ever after. So that love story appealed to my little teenage mind, I guess. Going over to Rajasthan now, Jaipur, the Muslims were very good at mathematics, and they built this observatory in Jaipur, which we visited, with great mathematical expertise, just beautiful angles, perfect symmetry. Some people like to go up to visit the palace on these elephants, and other people think it's a bad thing to use the elephants in this way. Elephants historically have been used as beasts of burden, of course. I did not go on an elephant. I chose to go up in a taxi. Food is, oh, you can get anything, any kind of food anywhere in India. Japanese, English, Canadian, whatever kind of food. Here's an example of a Western breakfast that we had in a fancy hotel one day. Here's an example of a thali, which I much prefer. You can get a thali here in Edmonton anywhere, almost anywhere. And it's kind of like breakfast or lunch or supper even, little samples of different kinds of food. This bowl down here actually holds dessert. This one is yogurt. This one is lentils and rice, roti, chapatis, some little bit of salad back there. We never ate salad when we were kids. I never had salad till we came here when I was about 18. And this one, I don't know what that is. I think it might be, I don't know, some kind of chicken curry of some kind, maybe. I showed you a picture of the langur earlier. This is another kind of monkey, which is dressed up, and I didn't like this. I didn't like to see animals being used as entertainment like this. But it's used to be a very common sight in my childhood, not so much these days, I don't think. I hope not. That's my bias. I don't know what you think of this picture. I don't think the infrastructure for healthcare is very good in India, although it's getting better. That's one thing I think of. I asked a friend of mine what he thought of when he saw this picture. And I'll just leave it with you to think of what it means to you. This gentleman spoke quite good English, actually, as many people do in India. Begging is not encouraged by the government, but people still do give money to beggars if they can't earn their living in a different way. So there are all kinds of different modes of transportation in India. There's a makeshift bicycle you can see here. I'm pointing with my finger when I should be pointing with the mouse here. This is a rebuilt bicycle with several layers of chickens being taken to market. There's a little convenience store. You have to leave your Western eyes at home if you go to India. You see all kinds of sights. This gentleman is selling bangles. I always like to buy bangles when I go to India. I grew up with bangles on both wrists. This gentleman is wearing a little cap, which signifies that he's Muslim. There's your local barber shop and the dental office. I don't know how much anesthetic is used. There's another type of merchandise being parted somewhere. And the horns, the blowing of the horns in India, oh my goodness. If you've ever been to India, you will know how noisy it is. All different kinds of chilies. I think Westerners often think of food in India as being quite full of chili peppers. This is my favorite fruit at the front here, the sitafal. It's custard apple in English, if you've ever had one, custard apple, little seeds inside that you just spit out. Another gentleman selling wares at just in front of our bus that we were using to travel around in. There's waste management in India. It's happening, believe it or not. There are lots of clean places, as you saw in the hotel earlier, but also you see lots of stray dogs and garbages piled up everywhere. As far as construction goes in India, of course there are machines, but it's also women's work. I saw a lot of women doing heavy construction work, carrying things, rocks, pieces of lumber on their shoulders and their heads. And as for the future generations, like here's a little babe. She was looking for her loved ones, her mom, and right in the middle of a construction site. Nobody around to protect her. And here's a little chappie, maybe a little bit older than that little girl, in the Dalai Lama's courtyard, being brought up as a prince. Probably Gandhiji is the most famous Indian historically and still revered, remembered today for many reasons. And I think he is the one that many people think of as drawing the three Abrahamic religions together, as well as Hinduism. He was on his deathbed when he called three close friends to him, one a Christian, one a Hindu, and one a Muslim. And then he didn't die. He lived for another period of time. And that's another story, I think. So I have a little question to ask you now. You all, if you know the meaning, what religion all these symbols belong to. I didn't know some of them. Some of them I do know. This one, everybody knows, living in this country. Probably this one and this one. Maybe that one. And for sure you know this one, I'm sure. Just look that over. And ask yourselves, are there any religions there that you don't know what that symbol is for? And I'm going to show you the answers. Can I switch to the answers?
Yes, I think so. Try it.
There we are. Whoops. So how many of those would you have got? I think there's 16, 16, yeah. And there are the answers. Oops, we want to go forward. Hinduism is the most prominent one, and this is a symbol of Om, the voice of God through the universe. And I think in the West we're familiar with. And Netta, I just want to show this one. It's not part of the presentation, but it is the one Jewish synagogue that I have ever visited in India. And it's in South India, so it's really not part of this little presentation. But it's just a jewel. It's a pristine, it's the most beautiful synagogue, and it happens to be in South India, in the state called Kerala. It's just beautiful. We're at the front of the sanctuary, and we're looking towards the back in this picture. And I don't know what the symbols are, but I brought it forward because I wanted to honor Netta and the work that she's doing with the interfaith organization. So I think this is probably the end of what I'd like to show you, just these quick images of my India. My mind and my heart are culturally probably quite confused. as to all these religions. And I know for me, faith is a journey from one point to another, perhaps, that we are all on. And I just have a very wide open heart. And I think that we need to choose what is good in every religion, and there is goodness in every single religion. And I personally honor all the religions, and I have learned so much from each one, to the point where now I don't think I could be called a Christian. I think I'm either a humanitarian, or maybe an agnostic, or maybe an atheist. But I do like to think I'm a bona fide member of St. Albert United Church, where I'm a shit disturber. I stir the pot. So anyway, I've offered you these images, and let's open it up to discussion.
Helen, if you'd like to stop your screen share, we could see.
Yes, I'll
better.
stop the screen sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy.
There we are, all our smiling faces ready to ask questions.
Well, thank you. I'm going to thank Helen first, because, and then open up to questions. I'll make a couple comments. That was wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm sorry I got us off to a rocky start. That was excellent. And we can go past ones if anybody has to leave. That's understandable. I'm here, Guy's here. I hope Helen can stay for a few minutes. That was great. I have been to India, and you have to leave your Western eyes at home, Helen. That's a good way to put it. But any time we travel, we have to be open-minded and as uncritical as we can, or else just stay home. Just don't go somewhere and complain. Just stay home, right? But about the Dalai Lama, I remember decades ago, there was a TV show called Man Alive with a host, Roy Bonesteel. And he interviewed the Dalai Lama, and he said, "I've never interviewed God before." And the Dalai Lama said, I am a single Buddhist monk. So that is how he sees himself. That it's not about his ego. So singing bowls, yes, there is a woman that did a lunch and learn for us in person a few years ago. I think she's married to the minister of Southminster Steinhauer at the time. And that was lovely, the singing bowls. It was just a very entrancing hour. And we've used them in City Hall over the years as well. So with the acoustics in City Hall, they're beautiful too. And hopefully we'll get back to that celebration soon. So thank you. Dawn, I see your hand was up. Please.
I really appreciate this presentation, because I knew Helen was from India in some way, but I wasn't aware of all your experiences, and it was most interesting. My question is, if you came back to Canada after your experiences in India for 20, 30 years, whatever it will be, how did you end up in St. Albert?
I'm bossy, Don. My husband was in the Canadian Forces, and stationed in Toronto, and I wanted to find a job. And so we agreed that I would, when he was transferred to Edmonton, he and I agreed that I would come to Edmonton to look for a job, find a house, and schools for the kids. Yeah. And so I asked around amongst our friends in Toronto, where should we live? And without batting an eye, most people said St. Albert. So this is where we came.
Good. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Don. It was good to see you and familiar faces here. Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody else? Pat, please.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify. It's Kim Boyce that plays the
Oh, right.
bells and or the singing bowls, and she goes to Southminster Steiner, but she is married to the minister at First Mill Woods, Ian Kellogg.
Oh,
And your thing about India just really touched me, because I'd been to northern India and seen a lot of that, and tying it in with Kim, she was married at the time to Gordon McFadden, and I'm wondering, he just loved India and going up to Tibet and stuff, so I'm wondering if that's where she learned to do the bowls. And when we were in Rishikesh, we went to, and I forget what the name of the evening religious ceremony is, but part of it was putting a bowl with a candle in it to float down the river, and that can be a symbol of death, that you put that. And I found out when I came back to Edmonton a week later that, or a month later, that Gordon died within 24 hours of me putting that candle in the water. And so it really, the religion, like the spirit, is all over the world, and how that happens. So anyway, that's a bit of my story of being in India.
thank you.
That's really a very sacred story, Pat. Thank you for that.
Who else? Well, I'll do a plug for the Interfaith Center. We have the 2022 calendar in stock. It's beautiful as always. I'm sorry, there's a shadow, there's a reflection on the screen, but contact me at the office. You can buy it on our website with PayPal. You can send a check. I can mail it. I can deliver quantities of 5 or more. And on the back, there are 12 or 14 religious symbols that are included in this calendar, not the 16 you have, Helen. I know Eckankar is not there. They have tried to be included, and one other, but the new calendar is here. I'm very excited about it. And thanks for showing that beautiful synagogue in Kerala. Of course, right around the year 1 in the Common Era, Jews and Christians, well, the early Christians went to Kerala, and some of the oldest Christian communities in the world are in Kerala. Doubting Thomas, St. Thomas, started them, and I think they're still called Thomasine Christians, or they consider themselves to be that. And there was a big Jewish presence there. That's probably a Portuguese synagogue that you showed, so it would be a Sephardic synagogue, and very active, and managed as well to protect their, even under Portuguese rule, they managed to protect their Jews from the Inquisition. So that was another tribute to the multicultural nature of India. Absolutely. Who else,
Yeah.
please? Who else? Dawn? No?
No, I've
Oh,
Yeah. Netta, every time there is an incident in a synagogue anywhere in the world, it's just small. That little synagogue in Kerala is really small. They always mount heavy security, and that's really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when something happens here to a synagogue in Edmonton, the security is mounted in Kerala,
Yeah.
that little synagogue, you know?
Well, more and more synagogues and mosques have to have security, unfortunately. We have our high holidays next week, and we'll have police at the front door and the back door. It's very unfortunate, but it's the reality that is necessary.
You know, could I go back and ask you all a question? I'd like to have a little, is there time, Guy? Where are you?
We're at about an hour right now, so if you could keep it short, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just want to ask everybody else a question. Right now, I'm struggling with my white skin. I guess putting it in context with Black Lives Matter and the fact that I grew up as a visible minority. I like to think that I'm not racist, but I heard a talk show on CBC yesterday which said the woman that was talking said that even if you have white skin, even being born into a white skin, you're racist. Like, and I'm thinking back to how now I'm looking at Pauline. Pauline, I grew up with Indigenous people in Central India, the Bhils, and they were my playmates. And how can I say that I'm any different from my playmates?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we all have the same red skin. I mean, red blood and the same kind of molecules in our skin and stuff. What is this? Like, I get really upset. Does anybody else have a comment? Look at us here. Are we all white people? I don't know. White
I like
skin
the phrase,
people,
I like the phrase, I like the phrase that there's only one race, and that's the human race. That's just me.
I would find that remark offensive no matter what color I was. Because I
Which
agree
remark, Pauline?
about, that if you're just because of the color of your skin, that automatically makes you racist. I just cannot believe that.
Huh.
Yeah, I think
Racism
you would
is an attitude that's learned. It's not something you're born with.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. I was thinking that you were probably hearing from a woman who had been hurt by people before, and on account of that was grouping everybody into that same box, all the white people, but we don't all fit.
Yeah. I'm reading a really interesting book by a woman, an African-American woman called by the name of Isabel Wilkerson. And the book that I'm reading is, the title of it is Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent. And she compares how, oh, Netta, maybe I shouldn't even have, this just popped into my head. This is a fascinating book. One comment that she made, have you read the book, Netta?
No, but I've heard of it and it's on my list for sure.
Yeah. And one comment she makes is that stuck in my head is that you're not Black till you come to the West. And then all